Are hello and welcome to the Happy Wife School show. I hope everybody's having a nice weekend so far and looking forward to getting into our topic today. If you guys can let me know, as you always do, thank you, Phil, that you can hear me, see me, everything's coming through okay. I'll check the chat in just a moment. But first, always like to give the reminder, please check out the Happy Wife School on Spotify and Apple Podcast, where I take the live show that I do every Saturday on the YouTube channel and put that in podcast format on Spotify and Apple. I'm still working on last week's, but that will be up soon there. And if you feel called to, please give the Happy Wife School show a rating on Spotify or Apple. It helps it to find more people. As always, please go check out my colleague's YouTube channel, the autoimmune expert. Josie is incredible at helping people to permanently heal from autoimmune diseases and chronic illnesses by working on your emotional state. She talks about some similar things as I do, being in camp victim versus camp take responsibility, and taking some of the concepts that I teach and weaving it into how that creates autoimmune disorders and chronic illnesses. So if you or someone you know suffers from an autoimmune disease like fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue or Hashimoto's or Graves' disease or chronic illness like depression or cluster headaches or migraines or chronic pain, you want to go check out the autoimmune expert, and you can find the link to Josie's channel in the description below. I'm going to head over to the chat for a moment, make sure everything's coming through loud and clear. Thank you, Phil. Appreciate you so much. And as always, a big thank you to Steve and Phil for moderating the chat on Saturday and making it a great place to be. Hi, Colleen. Great to have you here. Salty, good to see you and have you here as well. And all the regulars that make it to the Saturday show. And also a welcome to those who maybe this is your first live show. It's great to have you and happy that you were able to catch an episode live. So with all of that being said, actually, one more thing. I will be here next Saturday. Is it the 20th is next Saturday, I believe. But I will be taking a two-week break after next week's episode. So I will not be live on December 27th or January 3rd. So just wanted to give you guys that heads up. But look forward to seeing you next Saturday for the final episode of 2025. I had to look at the date, like what year are we in? So, all right, guys, let's get started. So today, the topic, why your wife is a nag. That's where we're gonna end up. So stick around. That's gonna be the last part of what we talk about today. Today's episode is based on a great question that I got from a female viewer. So I'm going to start by reading the question, and then we will get into our different talking points for the day based on the question that this woman asked. So the question, she says, I am new to your videos, and I recognize myself in some of what you are talking about, especially being a member of Camp Victim. I really struggle bringing up things that are issues for me with my husband. I love my husband, and I want our relationship to be good for both of us. I also recognize that my husband does want to be a good husband and strives to be. But like me, he is not perfect, and there are some things that are a problem. How do I address those things with him without casting myself into victim mode or coming across like I am blaming and nagging him? Every time I try, I feel like I am making things worse, and I fall into the, what's the use, and give up, and then I am back to Camp Victim. I would be very interested in any feedback that you have. So first of all, kudos to this woman. Her name is Megan. Megan, thank you so much for sending this question in. And you should be really proud of yourself to be open to seeing yourself in Camp Victim and recognizing that in your marriage with your husband. That is probably for most women, and myself included, when I got onto this path, one of the most difficult things to see about ourselves is living in camp victim and how we cast blame and can nag and live in camp victim in our marriages. That's not an easy woman way to see, even though it's a central part of my message that I talk about almost every single week. So you should be really proud of yourself to have the courage to watch my videos and be open to them, and to see yourself in camp victim and have that level of self-awareness. This woman is a good contrast to the video that I did last week and the questions that I answered. So that live episode was why your wife won't watch my videos. And it was based on questions I got from a female viewer that were more negative and skeptical in nature. And she was not open to watching my content. So just different ends of the spectrum, that this woman lives in what I call the 25% of women who will be open to my message. So I wanted to answer this question because it's really good and gives the opportunity to talk about some of the foundational concepts that I in marriage to help this woman have a new perspective as she's beginning to watch the content. So the first place that I want to go in answering her question is really based on the first sentence where she says, I recognize myself in some of what you are talking about in your videos, especially being a member of Camp Victim. So I want to take just a moment to talk about what is Camp Victim and why is it such a problem for us as women in a marriage to a good man. So living in Camp Victim is looking outside of ourselves and pointing the finger out, in this context, pointing the finger out to our husbands, finding fault in our husbands, finding the negative things we perceive them to be doing that are causing our unhappiness in the marriage. And in living in Camp Victim, there can be no accountability. Camp Victim is the antithesis of accountability. It's a way to avoid accountability and looking at ourselves and taking responsibility. So we live in a false, self-created reality focused on our husbands and constantly looking outside of ourselves to why they are the problem in the marriage, why they are the one creating the issues and problems, and blaming them for our unhappiness in the relationship. This is such a problem for us as women in a marriage to a good man, because when we live in Camp Victim blaming our husbands, we effectively degrade their sense of self by constantly making them wrong, constantly viewing them as the problem, and that weakens a good man to where he gets sucked into the gaslighting, which is what we do from Camp Victim, gaslight our husbands to make them believe that they are the problem. And a good man is vulnerable and susceptible to believing his wife's perspective and her perception of the issues in the relationship, and believing that his wife is correct and right, that he is the problem. And it causes a good man to become very weak in himself and emasculated. Then, as women, our husband's response, reaction, and changes in his personality and demeanor in the relationship as a result of us blaming them and emasculating them, take those changes in him, those reactions and responses to us, and use it as further ammo as to why he's the problem. Because in Camp Victim, we have no self-awareness to see ourselves, how we are showing up, and how we are the ones creating the problem. Generally, good men do not live in Camp Victim in a marriage. They're not victims. Good men in a marriage want to take responsibility generally want to make their wives happy. They know they are not perfect. They are the first to admit that they make mistakes, but they're problem solvers. They want to talk things out and come to a reasonable compromise and solution to the problems and the issues. They're not looking to blame their wives. They're not looking to point out why she's the problem and she's to blame. His orientation is, let's solve the problems and have a good working ability to solve the problems in our marriage and have a healthy, happy marriage. That's what a good man wants. It's our orientation as women in a marriage. We want to live in camp victim blaming our husbands so that we don't have to look at ourselves. The problems persist, and we can continue to absolve ourselves of any kind of accountability or responsibility, which we view as emotionally painful and vulnerable and makes us wrong. So we can't see very easily as women when we make mistakes or we're contributing to a problem that is part of life, part of a marriage, part of being a human being. We perceive any fault or contribution to the problems are on our end, that we are fundamentally wrong and the worst person on earth. That's how we perceive having to look at ourselves. And so we avoid that at all costs, which is why we live in camp victim, blaming our husbands. This is another reason I like to add this in, that this is another reason why marriage counseling and the marriage books that we read don't work, because they do not take into account the dynamics of a good man and a woman in a marriage, where a good man is trying to solve the problems and look for solutions to the problems, and a woman is stuck in blame, viewing her husband through a negative lens of how he is the problem and has no interest in solving the problem, because then her unhappiness would be on her shoulders and she couldn't point the finger out at her husband any longer. Marriage counseling and the marriage books out there in general are teaching codependency of what are the problems one spouse is having, that the other spouse needs to do something different to change the other's experience, which is codependency. I need you to be something for me to feel okay and be happy in the marriage. And if you're not doing those things, then I'm unhappy. That's codependency. And codependency lives in camp victim. My emotional state, my experience is dependent on how you are showing up or not showing up that creates my experience. That's victim. That's how we end up in blame. And it is disastrous and completely destructive to a marriage. And that's why I teach the psychology of relationships, that every relationship is a reflection of me. I am the problem because I'm the only person that I have any control over to change. So the psychology of relationships lives in camp take responsibility, empowering each person to work on themselves in the relationship to solve the problems, not putting the responsibility or burden on the other person, because we don't have control to change another person. And then we put our happiness in their hands. So first, to this woman, good for you to see yourself in camp victim. And you have to know that in order to address and solve the issues, you must first get out of camp victim. And how we get out of camp victim in our marriages as women is to see that we are the problem. We are the problem in a marriage to a good man. Because a good man wants to solve the issues and problems. He's willing to admit his mistakes. He knows he's not perfect and would love nothing more than to be able to come together in a calm, collaborative way to compromise and work as a team to solve the issues without blame, without making each other wrong, and to move on and move forward and then let it go once the problem is solved. But as women living in camp victim, wanting our husbands to be the problem, we don't want the issue solved because we want to be able to blame them for our unhappiness. And in that, we can destroy a good man, and he eventually throws his hands up and gives up. So as women, when we're willing to work on ourselves and see that we are the problem and change how we are showing up in the relationship, then a good man is right there, ready and waiting to work together, to care and love for you, and wants to do the things to try to make you happy. But the problem is we're unhappy in ourselves. And so we have to make ourselves happy and stop putting the burden on our husbands to solve the issues and for them to make us happy, so we can see them through the lens of can't take responsibility and see all the wonderful things about them and all the good things they do and how they do show up and care for us, and stop focusing on the negative or the problems or the things that we think they need to do better. So we first have to look at ourselves. What am I doing to cause and contribute to the problems? And always have to look at ourselves first. For example, if my husband seems distant from me or withdrawn, I do not go to him to talk about it. I first have to slow down and look at myself and be honest with myself of how have I been showing up? What's my mood like when I get home? Am I slowing down to shift gears and acknowledge and consider him in the relationship? Or am I living in my selfish woman universe of one, only thinking of myself and disregarding him? Am I running around like a tornado and emotionally sped up and spewing that everywhere? Have I been nitpicking and nagging and critical of him? How are my walls up? And I look at myself first. How am I the problem? How am I showing up that's causing him to be distant and withdrawn? Because he's a good man. And as soon as I change and I drop my walls and I slow down and I take accountability for myself and I treat him with kindness and respect and love, he is fully engaged and present in the relationship. So I have to look at myself first and be honest and have the self-awareness to know, how am I showing up? How am I not showing up? What do I have going on that I'm bringing into the relationship and it's impacting them, because they are highly, highly sensitive to our emotional state and how we are showing up in the relationship and how we are treating them. And it impacts how then they show up. That's the psychology of relationships. I'm the problem. It's me. And then when I change, the dynamics change. And as a woman married to a good man, he's right there waiting and re-engaged in the relationship. It's like magic. If I look at myself and I'm honest and I can see I'm doing pretty good, not perfect, then I can understand, and see and have some self-awareness of what he might have going on at work or what he might have going on with his family. Or if I'm showing up how I need to be showing up as my best as a wife, then my husband will come to me and say, hey, I'm feeling a little disconnected and withdrawn right now. I have X, Y, and Z going on. Just wanted to let you know it's not you. So please be patient as I work through this, and I just know I'm doing my best. He will. But if I'm being bitchy and spewing my own emotional turmoil out into the relationship and taking it out on him, then he's withdrawn from me and he's not going to come to me and share that, because I'm not an approachable person in that place. So that's the first part. You have to get out of camp victim. And how you do that is to see black and white, you're the problem. Because this woman, it says, I recognize that my husband wants to be a good husband and strives to be, and she loves her husband and knows he's not perfect. So that's a good man. She knows she's married to a good man. So for this woman, you first have to take that humble pie and tough pill to swallow that you are the problem with a good man. And then that backs you into a corner in a constructive way to always look at yourself and keep the focus off your husband, believing he's the problem. That's step one. So the next piece I want to go to in her question is where she says, I love my husband and I want our relationship to be good for both of us. I also recognize that my husband does want to be a good husband and strives to be. So in this part, I want to talk to the men for a minute. So this is a very blessed man. The husband of the woman who wrote in this question is very blessed because, one, he has a wife who's willing to watch my videos and can see herself in Camp Victim and admit her part and role in the issues and see some not fun things to see about herself, blaming and nagging. So if you have a wife, I want this to the good men listening, if you have a wife like this, excuse me, if you have a wife like this who is open to watching my videos, is trying to work through her issues, is able to be honest and see the things that I talk about and recognize those things in herself, and in this case, brave to write in a question to me, or for some of you, your wives take that step forward to take my courses that I have for women, then you want to be really patient as she faces herself in her woman ways, because we have had this complexity and wiring our whole lives, and it's quite a moment of awakening to see ourselves as the problem in the relationship and be honest with ourselves about the woman ways we have, like living in Camp Victim and being controlling and nagging and blaming and seeing what that does to our husbands. It's a pretty big awakening to have, and it takes time to catch ourselves and change those behaviors because they are so ingrained into the fabric of who we are as women. It is not a snap of the fingers and we can just change like that and we're going to show up with full integrity and character and taking accountability. It just doesn't work that way. So you want to be patient and focus on the miracle, really. Focus on the miracle that your wife sees herself in my message. She's open and she genuinely wants to do her best and change. And the degree of which she is able to do that is up to her. You want to focus on the fact that she's open to the message. That's huge, because only 25% of women, based on my experience, are open to anything I have to say. And I would say that's a pretty generous statistic. That's a pretty generous statistic. So you want to not focus on, or let me put it this way. What's important is she's open-minded and wants to change and can be honest to see herself in the things that I talk about. To whichever degree she's open and willing to see those things in herself. It might not be all of it, like this woman said. Should I recognize myself in some of what you're talking about? Especially Camp Victim. That's probably the most important thing that a woman is able to see herself in my message as living in Camp Victim. So what's important is she's open and she's looking at herself, not how quickly she's changing or that she gets it and can just changes right away. Just that she can see it and she's working on it and she's committed to changing, however long that takes. It can be very difficult for a good man to see and understand that we don't think and aren't wired like a good man. So even though she's open to seeing the issues and working on them, she's going to go about them in her way as a woman and have her own pace in that. She's not going to just be rational and logical and right there to solve problems. She's still going to be a woman, and that can be difficult for a good man to understand. So the next place I want to go is another part of the question where this woman said, I really struggle bringing up things that are issues for me with my husband. So for this woman asking this question and other women listening who can relate to that, we're conflict avoiders. It's really normal We as women in general really struggle to bring up the issues in a marriage and face the issues and work on the problems. We do not want to rock the boat and have to risk conflict, not being on the same page, having to work through our differences and find compromise to meet in the middle and find a common ground to work toward a solution. It's terrifying to us. Whereas for a good man, while he might be scared in his marriage to bring up an issue with his wife because of the effects of the emasculation, what's fascinating is when I talk to good men who are scared to bring up the issues in a marriage because of his wife's reaction, I will ask him, are you comfortable bringing up a tough issue at work or in your business with a coworker or an employee to get to the bottom of it and solve it? Are you scared to confront one of your children and address a problem and face it and work with them to come up with a solution? And 99.9% of the time their answer is no, not at all. It's only in their marriage and having to face their wives that it can bring up that fear because of how we make our husbands wrong and bad, and our wrath comes out if they dare step into that lion's den to confront us and bring issues up. So for good men listening, they're like, well, I'm a conflict avoider in my marriage. You want to know, no, in general, you're not a conflict avoider. It happens in your marriage because of how you're treated by your wife, that she makes you intimidated and scared of her, so you won't bring up the issues and you not dare cross her path. So that's why I teach good men, you got to step in to the lion's den to face the wrath, because that's how you take your power back and overcome the fear your wife has instilled in you of how she treats you. But for us as women, and Joe, in all relationships and aspects of our life in general, we are terrified to bring up conflict and face it. We want everything in its own nice little box, and we want life to look like a straight across line without any blips or disruptions. And want to go through life with our blinders on, not having to look at the issues, because we don't want to be vulnerable to face what those issues are going to bring up in ourselves or what they're going to bring up in the relationship and what we're going to have to do to solve them. So again, for men listening, you want to understand that, not in a way that you can relate because you're a problem solver and you say, hey, who cares about the conflict? Let's bring it up, get it on the table, and let's solve it. You want to know your wife does not think that way as a woman. So it's not reasonable to think that that's ever going to be natural for her. When I was planning this out and talking this this live out, I had to go in and like, oh my God, I'm still terrified to bring up a conflict. I'll get myself to do it, but I'd rather be tortured than bring up the problems and face the conflict in them. Not literally, but that's the fear and the terror inside of us as women. And part of it is we've made the issues and problems in our own wiring and emotional responses. We make everything so complex. And we make ourselves and the complexity within ourselves and our emotional experience, we make ourselves an enigma to ourselves. And we want that. We want to be an enigma to ourselves and make the issues and problems so complex so that we can't figure them out and solve them. We want the complexity. We want to be the enigma. So we have another reason of why we're unhappy, why we have the problems we have, because we can't figure them out. It's another way to absolve ourselves of accountability. And the difference for a man is he's straightforward. Let's get the issues up, let's look at them, and takes a logical, practical approach to them. So it's another understanding of the differences in us. And I often will tell a good man, you don't have to understand it in a way of how that works, because you can't. You're not wired that way. But it's a broad understanding of your wife as a woman, to understand why it's so difficult for her to face the issues because of her own wiring within herself as a woman, and how complex she makes the issues, and how terrifying it is to face them and face the conflict. So again, in this case, with this woman who asked the question, this man should be very grateful that he has a wife who is willing to look at herself and wants to figure out how to face the issues and problems and not struggle so much. So she's still going to struggle. And for the woman who wrote this in, you're going to struggle. This isn't going to be natural to you. It's embracing and accepting, as I've had to do. I don't like conflict. I don't want to face it because of what I have to face in myself, and the fear that I conjure up and get lost in facing conflict. I can't deny that in myself. And it's an acceptance and a knowing and an understanding and knowing of myself, so that I can strengthen that. But I accept and know it's likely going to be a struggle for most of my life. And that's okay, because we all have weaknesses and strengths. Women have strengths that men don't have, and men have strengths that women don't have. That's why we complement each other and can have what I talk about as the dance. So it's an acceptance of yourself that this is a struggle and challenge for you. And then you can work with yourself in overcoming that struggle and challenge within yourself to do the best you can. And you'll get better and better and better. But knowing it's uncomfortable. And when I embrace that, it actually makes it a lot easier. So the next place that I would like to go in her question is where she says, but like me, where she says, my husband's a good husband and strives to be a good husband, but like me, he's not perfect. And there are some things that are a problem. So yes, I want my audience to know that men can contribute to the issues and problems. They're not perfect. That sometimes a man can be struggling with something and it be an issue in the relationship, and that it's not on the woman. A good man knows that, and he's the first to admit it. And good for this woman to know she's not perfect either. That marriage is hard work. Again, most women want the straight line and keep everything neat and in its place in a box. And when the issues and challenges come up, and her husband's not perfect, and there's something that needs to be addressed, their reaction is, I didn't sign up for this. This isn't what I thought marriage was going to be, because we often live in a fantasy thinking marriage is supposed to be a fairy tale, and there's not supposed to be any issues or problems. The reality is that truly the purpose of a marriage is to have the issues and problems that are going to come up in a lifetime in a relationship together, both in the marriage and in our own individual lives and families, and the real life things that are going to happen. The purpose of a marriage is to be a team and learn to be a team and come together to solve the problems so that the marriage can be successful. Marriage is not a straight line. Marriage is a series of ups and downs, of adversities and problems and challenges, and it's hard work. When we embrace that and run into it and run into the ups and downs, run into the challenges and adversities, that marriage is very fulfilling. That's what creates the depth and the intimacy and the closeness and the connection, is the ability to work together through those issues and adversities and come together as a team. That is what makes it so fulfilling and an adventure and feeling a closeness and a connection to each other. So it's wonderful that this woman can see she's not perfect. Her husband's not perfect. They have issues and problems, and she wants to face them. She's not living in the fantasy of this shouldn't be happening. So, and can't take responsibility, or let me put it this way, it's only in can't victim that we want to run and hide from the problems and think they shouldn't be there. And can't take responsibility, we embrace the problems to grow and learn and accept the reality of marriage being a series of ups and downs, and that it is hard work. So the next place is, in the question that I want to go to, is how do I address those things with him, the problems she's seeing in him? How do I address those things with him without casting myself into victim mode or coming across like I am blaming and nagging him? Every time I try, I feel like I am making things worse. And then I fall into oh, what's the use? And just give up. And then I'm back in camp victim. So again, good for you to recognize yourself as a victim and that you can blame and nag. That's wonderful self-awareness. And the problem is, it's really important. The problem is you can't constructively address the issues in a marriage from camp victim. It's impossible because we're entrenched in blame and we're entrenched in self-denial that we can have anything to do with the problems and issues or any contribution to them, and are stuck in believing he's the problem. So in camp victim, we compulsively blame and view our husbands as the problem and view them as always in the wrong, which is where we live in that altered reality where there's no ability to look at ourselves and our own part and role. And this is why you come across as blaming and nagging. The reason you come across as blaming and nagging is because you are coming from camp victim. And the problems that you are seeing in your husband from camp victim are not real issues in the marriage. They're contrived and made up from the negative lens we create as a victim, where you can only see the negative behaviors to validate your story of blame that we are always weaving when we're being a victim. So when you say every time I try to bring the issues up, it makes it worse and I throw my hands up and I give up, that's the victim perspective. And it ends up in an argument because you're blaming him, you're making him wrong, then he reacts and feels attacked because that's what we're creating when we're coming from that place of victim. And it ends up in a fight because when we address issues as a woman in the marriage, when we're trying to address issues with our husband, we're not coming from a place of trying to solve the problems that you want to be on. For this woman who wrote the question in and the other women listening, you want to be honest with yourself about this. When you try to bring up the issues, it's not from a place of trying to solve them or be constructive. The reason it goes badly and it makes things worse and you end up throwing your hands up is because you're coming from an angle of trying to be right and making your husband wrong. You're coming at the problems from camp victim where you want to be right and you're arguing your side to be right and making your husband wrong. There's no movement toward trying to solve it. There's no understanding or acceptance of your husband in camp victim. You're just seeing what he's doing is wrong. It's a huge problem and it's making you unhappy. So it's coming from a place of blame. And he's going to react poorly to that because he feels the blame He feels the insinuation from you that he's in the wrong and that you want to be right. And so he's not willing to work with you. And that's why it ends up in a fight and an argument. And we actually want it to end up in a fight and an argument, not have it solved, because then it validates our victim story. All fighting and all arguments come from camp victim. All arguments and all fighting come from camp victim because it's somebody wanting to be right and making the other person wrong, which is a victim stance. And a good man might try to stand up for himself and fight back. And then that's coming from a place because he feels wrong, attacked, and blamed. When you live in camp take responsibility as a woman in your marriage and you're married to a good man who naturally lives in camp take responsibility, doesn't mean he's perfect, doesn't mean he doesn't ever go into victim. But in general, in the marriage, he wants to take responsibility. What can I do to be a better husband? What can I do to solve the problem? Willing to look at myself. He's living in camp take responsibility in the marriage. If a woman's living in camp take responsibility also, then there are no arguments because both people are coming together to solve the issues for the common good of the marriage. There's no attacking. There's no making somebody wrong. Hey, this is a problem. Doesn't mean it's not uncomfortable. But you're both working together. There's no pointing the finger out and making someone wrong. Before I lived in camp take responsibility, my husband and I fought often. Because I was coming from a place of blaming him and making him wrong, and then he would react. I didn't want to solve the problems. I wanted the problems, so I had something to point the finger out to my unhappiness, and it would end up in a fight. But since I've lived in camp take responsibility, again, not perfect, but in general, living in camp take responsibility in my marriage for, let's say, 7 or 8 years, we haven't fought. I honestly can't remember the last time that my husband and I had an argument. Maybe a little tension here and there in a conversation addressing an issue, but no fighting. And if I feel like I'm about to get to that point, I'll excuse myself for a moment and say, hey, I feel I'm getting elevated. I don't want that to happen. Give me just a moment. And then we come back to it. Because I want to take responsibility. I don't want to make him wrong. I don't want to blame him. So he's a good man living in camp take responsibility in our marriage. There's no fighting that comes from camp victim. So if you're a woman and you're married to a good man and you're arguing in your marriage, it's a clear sign that you are living in camp victim. And so when you say that you want to give up, where is that? Like, oh, what's the use and give up? And then you're back in camp victim. You want to know you're not back in camp victim. You were already there. You want to accept and know, oh, if it ends, if I try to bring up an issue and it makes things worse and I'm in the, oh, what's the use and give up mode, that's victim. You were already there. You don't go back to camp victim. That means if that's your experience after trying to bring up an issue, that's your litmus test and benchmark to know you approached the conversation and bringing up the issue as a victim, blaming your husband. This is what you're doing to me and how it's affecting me, and I feel wronged, and you are wrong. That's the perspective you're coming from, that the conversation ends badly, and then you go into giving up and, oh, what's the use? You can know if that's how it ends and it makes things worse. You approached the problem from camp victim because you wanted to be right. You weren't coming to solve the issue or be fair and understanding. You were making your husband wrong, and that's why he had the reaction that he had. So from this place, let's talk a little bit about nagging, because she brought up a great word in her question, that when she tries to address issues, she wants to know how to do that without casting herself in victim mode or coming across like she's blaming or nagging him. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about nagging. And we're going to get into 5 reasons why your wife nags. So nagging, the big theme of today's conversation and discussion and most weeks' discussion, nagging comes from camp victim. Nagging comes from camp victim. You've done something to me that I am unhappy, and I can only see the things that you are doing wrong. I can never see anything that you are doing right. And now I'm on my husband's case about all the things I see that he's doing wrong. That's where nagging comes from in camp victim, and from finding fault that we see and nothing ever being enough, good enough, right enough. And so we nag. Nagging is a compulsive criticism to make another person wrong in their behaviors and actions. Nagging is a compulsive criticism to make another person wrong in their behaviors and actions. Nagging in a marriage is often the petty issues, the trash, household chores, house projects, behaviors we don't like in our husbands, such as their eating or dietary habits, or not going to the gym, or not staying in touch with their family, or not having friends, or having hobbies we don't approve of, like playing video games or watching sports. So nagging comes from the petty issues in a marriage. And it's important to know that nagging can be verbal, but a lot of times nagging is non-verbal. It's the side eye that a good man gets from his wife when he goes back in for seconds or thirds at dinner. It's the sighing when she opens the trash and it's full and it hasn't been taken out, or the opening the dishwasher to see the dishes are still in there and then unloading it noisily. So nagging can be very nonverbal. It doesn't have to be outright, overt, verbal nagging, because I hear from a lot of good men, I'm pretty lucky my wife doesn't nag, and I kind of on the inside, I'm like, oh, yes, she does. Yes, she does, because we do it in many, many different ways. It's all the different ways that we criticize you for not being enough, good enough, or doing things right enough, or on our time in the way that we want them. And nagging is a form of emasculation, that it happens subtly, and then sometimes not so subtly. Some women can be quite overt in their nagging, but it happens over time. It's the death by 1,000 cuts. So the women listening want to be honest about the different ways that you nag. Like say, hi, my name is Karen. I'm a nagger. And mine can be very nonverbal. And it's the when something's not done and taking over and doing it, which is almost worse. And I have to be honest about that in myself, because then I can catch myself and zip it and zip my face to watch the glances and eyes and judgments I have, so that I can do my best and be a good wife for my husband, and also to feel good about myself and who I am and how I'm showing up. So it's being honest with yourself about it, because if you say it's not me, you'll never see it. And for the men listening, if you say that's not my wife, you won't see it, and you won't recognize the different ways you're giving your power away to her that is emasculating and weakens you. So, nagging is, before I get into the list of 5, nagging is the reason why a good man gives up and stops trying in the relationship. He's constantly given the message he's not doing enough. He's not doing it right enough. He's not doing it good enough. His wife is constantly unhappy. The goalpost always moves further. He feels the judgment. He feels he's not doing something, and she's upset, and he can't figure out what it is. And eventually, over time, a good man with the nagging, whether it be verbal or nonverbal, gives up, throws his hands up, and stops trying. It's really where a good man begins to rebel in a marriage, is because of the nagging. And I have a video under the video tab that you can check out on essentially nagging, why a good man rebels in a marriage and why he withdraws in a marriage. So that would be a good video to go check out. Getting into 5 reasons why your wife nags. Number 1, we are control freaks, and we want things done the way we want, in our time, when we want them done. First reason, understanding why a wife nags, is because we are control freaks, and we need everything in its place, and the only way is our way, the way we want it. And if you don't do it our way, it's wrong. And we will let you know that it's wrong. And in our of controlling nature, of we can't stand to have things out of their place, out of the way we want them to be. So then we nag our husbands. We ask them to do something. They have a list of priorities of what's important to them and what order that goes in, or maybe they have something else going on and it's going to take a little bit, and then we're upset, pissy, frustrated, and either verbally and outwardly, when are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? Or you can feel your wife's iciness and that she's mad about something and you can't figure out what it is. It's something that she needs done to feel in control in the marriage that she's asked you to do that you just haven't gotten to yet. And that could be a wife's form of nagging, is the things she's upset about that she won't tell you, that are because of what you're not doing that she needed you to do that you didn't do. And now she's upset about it and icing you out. That's a form of nagging that we might not think of. But in our needing to be in control, needing things done our way in our time, and then they're not done, that's another way also that we build our victim narrative of why our husbands are the problem in the marriage. And he never follows through and says he's going to does what he says he's going to do. And that's our victim narrative. Number 2 of why your wife nags. Number 2, we live in a universe of one, being selfish. We live in a universe of one, being selfish. We nag because we can't, in our selfishness of only thinking of ourselves and what we want, how we want it done in our time, we can't consider you. We can't consider you and what you might have going on in your life, that you have a timing of your own that works for you. We can only think of ourselves and our wants and needs. We can't consider what our husbands have going on, that they might not be able to do it or do it in our timing. And so then we nag because we're only thinking of ourselves and we're not thinking of our husbands at all. Number 3 of why your wife nags. We always have to be right. And we are a walking encyclopedia of all things life. We know how to do everything and how to do it the right way. And even if we don't, we will make it up. And that is the law. And that is what's right. So in nagging and our need to always be right, we have to find mistakes and issues with our husbands of what they're not doing that we want them or need them to do, and criticizing them so that we can be right and make you wrong, is our protective mechanism to not have to see the ways that we are not right and that we make mistakes and how we don't follow through. Number 4 of why your wife nags. Number 4, we like the drama of finding fault and creating issues and problems. Number 4, we like the drama of finding fault and creating issues and problems. So remembering that nagging is a constant criticism of what we find fault in our husbands for in their actions and behaviors. So nagging comes from a place of looking and finding fault and creating issues because we're drama queens and we want to stir the pot. We really are quite bitchy to be constantly stirring the pot and creating drama and finding fault, because we have to find things that explain our miserableness in the marriage. So we stir the pot by nagging, and it's a way to create that drama in the issue in the marriage and essentially make up issues and problems. And number 5 of why your wife nags, it's just another way to keep our focus on our husbands to avoid accountability for ourselves. Nagging is just another way to keep the focus on our husbands and what they're doing wrong to avoid accountability for ourselves. And from this place, we can feel like we have another child in the house that we have to manage and look out for and keep a negative focus on our husbands. And what's fascinating, we could also look from the angle that of what we project onto our husbands of they're not doing what I asked, they're not following through, they're not doing what I needed them to do, to recognize we don't keep our own word and follow through. We won't even take into consideration the things that our husbands ask us to do. Won't even listen. We become defensive and take it as criticism and you're making me wrong, and won't even let in a change or something our husband might ask us to do. And so then we project on our husbands that they're not following through or keeping their word. And again, it's another false reality and a way to avoid accountability for ourselves, that there could be anything we might need to work on. And those are the five reasons why your wife nags. So getting a little bit into the solution, I'll talk first to women. You want to understand, this is so important, ladies. Nagging is what makes a good man give up in a marriage or relationship. Nagging is what makes a good man give up and stop trying in a marriage or relationship. So when you're complaining that your husband never asks what you or never does what you ask him to do, when you're complaining that your husband never does what you ask him to do, and that you have to stay on his case, you want to recognize you've created the man that you need to nag. You have created the man that you need to nag. That over time, constantly criticizing him, constantly finding fault, constantly finding the reasons that he's the problem. He can only be made to be wrong for so long before he throws his hands up, throws in the towel, and gives up. A good man never needs to be nagged. He is conscientious. He wants to make his wife happy. And if we're showing up, doing our part, being a kind wife, having empathy and understanding, and that our husband has his own way of doing things that makes sense to him, he has his own timing of things, and you're treating him with respect and being kind to him and not nagging him and not constantly making him wrong or the problem, there is no reason ever to nag a good man. So you want to recognize your nagging is coming from a place of being a victim in your marriage, focusing on your husband and why he's the problem and making him wrong. And you have to move into can't take responsibility to see yourself as the problem, that you are the only person that you can change, and work on yourself to show up differently in your marriage. And your husband, as a good man, will be right there waiting to show up as a good man with you, and you never have to nag him. For the men listening, and the solution for you, good men, you have to take your power back and stop believing your wife's criticisms of you. That is part of the gaslighting and making you wrong and bad that you buy into, not knowing any better, and believe that somehow she's right and the expert of being in relationships and knows how the relationship is supposed to work. And you have to stop believing her gaslighting that you are the problem and not doing enough, and the gaslighting of her constantly moving the goalpost further and her demands, and that you have your own way of doing things and it's perfectly right. Your wife is not the judge of you. So you are most likely getting nagged about the things that you think will make your wife happy that never makes her happy, because she's unhappy in herself. You didn't make her unhappy. She's the one that's unhappy. And you fall into the trap of the things she wants you to do that you think will move the dial and make her happier in a better mood in the relationship. So one of the ways you can take your power back that you've unknowingly given away in the face of your wife nagging is stop trying to do the things to make your wife happy. Stop trying to do the things to make your wife happy. That's then where you will create the monster that nags you. It doesn't mean you stop doing things, but you shift your perspective to know, I can't make my wife happy, so I'm going to do these things for myself to make me feel good and to know that I am a good man and I'm reasonable and I'm a good husband, and you have to do those things for you, knowing nothing's ever going to make your wife happy. Nagging is just part of the gaslighting to make you feel wrong and bad. When you can see the reality of that, then you can stop letting the nagging in and let it bounce off and not get sucked into it. And if you're brave enough, you can say, hey, in a kind, respectful way, not an aggressive, victim-y way, but in a respectful way. Hey, if you're going to nag me, why don't you do it so it's done the way you want? I'm not going to do it. And be prepared to face the wrath. It's your willingness to step in, face the wrath, that you take your power back. Knowing her, if she reacts in wrath by you saying, hey, if you're going to nag me, you go ahead and do it so it's done the right way and the way you want, and she explodes, there's your litmus test to know you're not the problem, she is. Because her reaction is telling you it's her. And she doesn't want to see herself and take accountability for her part and role in contributing to the issues. So for both women and men, I have a course for women to teach you how to go from camp victim to camp take responsibility, and a course for men to learn to take your power back and to get yourself out of the gaslighting and crazy making and have clarity on your choice to stay in the marriage or go from the marriage if your wife won't change. And you can find the description to both courses in the link below and apply for a free consultation. And that's the show today. It was a little longer. More to talk about these last 2 weeks. So thanks for being patient and staying in there with me. I appreciate you very much. If you like the video, please give it a like. Share it with anyone you know that it could help. And please consider subscribing if you are not. And I'm going to take a quick peek at the chat after I take a quick sip of water. Phil, if you're able to stick around, thank you. And Steve, you guys are awesome. But Phil's going to send me some questions. I'll get into a couple. Let's see. Thank you so much, Tyrannoform. Kay said the B word. Happy holidays. Been a great gift to me. Thank you so much for your generosity and kindness. Oh my gosh, Phil, thank you. You're always so kind and generous. I appreciate you not only in your time, but also just your generosity to contribute to both Adam and I. For those who maybe haven't heard or know, contributions I get during my live shows, Adam and I use those to go do fun things that we might not do otherwise in our lives and on our budget. So I appreciate you so much. Karen, blessings to you and Adam this holiday season. We'll be going through withdrawal for the next couple of weeks, but I'll endeavor to persevere. Thank you, Phil, and thanks for the laugh. Again, reminder, I'll be here next Saturday. I think it's the 20th, but I won't be here on the 27th and the 3rd. So I'll take a 2-week break from the live show. So thank you guys so much for your generosity. It means a lot. Oh, thanks, Steve. Your comment just popped right up. We ride or die for Karen. I love it. Thank you guys so much. And Patriot Defender, thank you. A little longer is always appreciated, Karen. Oh, that's great. Good to know. Paddle Godson, thank you. Thank you, Karen. You are so appreciated. You have saved us in many ways. I appreciate that very, very much. So I'm going to, Just Wendy Sports Corner. Thank you so much for joining. I've been seeing your name pop up. I always look through the chat after I get finished with the live show. And good for you to see. Yep, only I can make myself happy. True words. So I'm going to head over, see if Phil sent me anything, and I'll answer or read a few comments. And then I'm going to wrap up. So let's see. Yep. We'll be here next Saturday, and no for the 27th and 3rd. So that is correct. Yeah, if you haven't yet, a short comment about your book progress. Yes, I made a update last week about that. I'm hitting some writer's block. And some of you have been so kind reaching out saying, just take the transcripts from your videos. And those are, I'm using those as a guide, but they don't always translate very well because I can be very conversational in how I present my live episodes each week. So they don't always translate the best. In the vision that I have for the book. So it's still being worked on, but not going as quickly as I thought it would, because this is the first book that I've ever written or put together. So it's definitely still in progress, and I'll keep you guys updated as I continue. Let's see. That's great, Phil. I like that. Thanks again for the laugh, Karen. I just have to say, I think I'm perfect. Just don't ask my wife. That's great. Thank you so much. Yeah, nagging seems like a defense mechanism, as Karen seems to imply. It's a constant wearing down. Yep. Not sure there's any way to break out of that. So for a good man, the way to break out of it is recognize your wife is the problem in the nagging. It's not a reflection on you. It's a reflection on her. And that's why it's so important that a good man slow down to see the ways that he shows up in his marriage and does his best and is a good man and knows he's not perfect, but that he's trying and doing the best he can. And when you're grounded and solid in that for yourself, that's where over time your wife's nagging either will start to stop because she recognizes it's not working anymore to wear you down, or it bounces off of you because you see what she's doing and you see the reality of it, and it's a reflection of her and her own issues and problems, and you don't let it in anymore. A good man has the power and control over whether his wife can wear him down or not. I'm going to say that again because it's really important. A good man has the control and power over whether his wife wears him down or not. A good man has to learn to take his power back and see objectively the reality of his wife as a woman, to no longer give his power away to her emasculating tactics that wear him down. That's why your wife is your greatest teacher, and that marriage is a good thing, and the dynamics between a good man and a woman, while not always fun, are a gift because it teaches you to strengthen the weaknesses in yourself that you wouldn't have the context to do without your wife as that mirror into yourself. And as you learn that and see the reality of your wife, the emasculation no longer works. The gaslighting no longer works, and she'll either start to stop or let up because she begins to respect you and your ability to not allow those behaviors to impact you, or it just doesn't have the effect anymore because you know yourself and you're grounded and confident in yourself. So that's why it's important that both men and women take responsibility in the relationship, while a woman is creating these destructive patterns and dynamics through our woman ways. They're purposeful in terms of a good man rebuilding his strength and confidence and knowing the reality of his marriage and strengthening those weaknesses within himself. So I teach, when you look at it, I really do teach, yes, women are the problem, but I also teach good men are the problem, just in different ways, that we both have to live and can't take responsibility so that we don't end up in victim blaming each other. So thank you for that comment. So is nagging a mental health issue, Karen? Yeah, so I don't view or talk about the issues I talk about in the context of being mental illnesses or mental health issues. I talk about them in the context of women being women, and that we have these issues and challenges on a spectrum. It's just our wiring that we can overcome and work on if we choose. Those are the weaknesses within ourselves. So I just say nagging is a effect and a symptom of living in camp victim, which is a human issue, but in a marriage with a good man, it's a woman way. So thank you. Oh, that's great. Actually, at the mall with my wife, she's shopping. I'm sitting in the car, but things are going great between us. Good for you guys. I think she's been secretly watching Karen's videos. She literally stopped doing many of the things Karen addresses. I was like, whoa, this is great. So a huge thank you to you, Karen. That's a wonderful example of a good man right there waiting, just loving and adoring his wife in spite of the issues and challenges, and just thrilled if she's willing to start to work on those things and show up. He's right there waiting for her. Thank you for giving us an example of that, EOD Tech 21. So I think that's it for today, guys. I'm gonna call it and go ahead and wrap up. But thank you guys so much for sticking with me, and just seeing if there's anything else that pops up. Awesome. Yeah. But thank you guys so much for being here today. It's always lovely to do these shows, and just appreciate your support of the channel and sharing and getting the message out there. And I hope to see you next Saturday. And if you're not able to make it, then I'll see you in the new year, and hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we'll see you guys soon. And those that can make it, I'll see you next Saturday. So have a nice rest of your weekend, guys. Bye.